In the previous two episodes, I went to Dandong, the Chinese city that borders North Korea on the Yalu River, took a boat to see North Korean villages and the city of Xinuzhu and the Hushan Great Wall, the easternmost section of the Great Wall of China. On this day, June 16th, we finished our trip to Dandong and we're heading to our next city, Shenyang, via the high-speed train. So after having lunch and eating North Korean-style cold noodles ramyeon, my mom and I walked into the Dandong train station and waited to board the train to Shenyang. Alright guys, I'm at the train station, about to board the train from Dandong to Shenyang. Making vlogs is really not that easy. No time to take proper footage, take proper videos. Very little time because most of the time I'm spending to enjoy myself. The train ride to Shenyang was smooth and very quick. We arrived in just a little over an hour and had a relatively comfortable shut-eye on the train. When we exited the train, I could feel the temperature difference. It was 33 degrees Celsius outside. Heck, this was even hotter than most days in Singapore. And summer in China was only beginning, yet Shenyang is beginning to feel this hot already. But when I looked at the weather forecast, it was only this week that had high temperatures, and it would begin to drop after that. How does this work? I can never understand. Probably it's all climate change's fault. Fuck climate change, honestly. Anyways, back on topic. We arrived at Shenyang North Railway Station, and my mom's friend picked us up on car and brought us around the northern part of the city. First, we arrived at Beiling Park, Beiling Gongyuan, which is home to a lake and the Qing Mausoleum, or Zhaoling, the tomb for the first emperor of the Qing dynasty, Huang Taiji, and his empress Borjigit Jia or Xiaodan. Yeah, most emperors and empresses in Chinese history have a personal name and a posthumous name, like Liu Bang of the Han dynasty having the posthumous name Gaozu. And this tradition was carried over all dynasties, including the Mongol Yuan dynasty. For example, Kublai Khan Kubilai was given the posthumous name Taizu, and also by the Manchu Qing dynasty, where Huang Taiji's posthumous name is Taizong. While it is actually debated whether Huang Taiji is his original personal name, Hong Taiji is the Manchu rendition of the Mongolian term Hong Taiji, which itself was borrowed from Chinese Huang Taizi, meaning crown prince or imperial prince. This name also rarely appeared in Manchu language records as there were beliefs on the taboo of using an emperor's personal name. There used to be some scholars that claim his personal name was actually Abahai, but this claim has been largely rejected in modern studies. It is however confirmed that his wife, the empress, was named Borjigit Jia, and given a posthumous name Xiaodan. Huang Taiji was originally the second Han of the later Jin Houjin dynasty, and was the 8th son of the founding emperor of later Jin, Nur Ha-Chi, originally from a Jurchen tribe who went on to conquer and unite the other Jurchen tribes and change the name of their people to Manchu. He then moved the capital of the later Jin Khanate from Liaoning, then called Dongjing, to Shenyang, then called Shengjing in Chinese, and Mukden in Manchu, where his son Hong Taiji proclaimed himself the Great Han and later the first Qing emperor. After Huang Taiji died, the Zhao Mausoleum was constructed in his honor with a total area of over 330 hectares. That's 3.3 square kilometers. This made it the largest imperial tomb that's located north of the Great Wall. Initially, this was a forbidden area only for imperial use and no commoners were allowed in, until during the warlord era after the founding of the Republic of China in 1928, when the Fengtian province, former name for Liaoning government, opened the Beiling Park for public access. There are a few lakes around that people can ride mini boats, and also a children's garden. Then in the main complex, there's a lot of gates and doors that lead to halls and temples showcasing different gods and spiritual masters in Buddhism. Damn, the emperor's court must have been super religious. Then there are these few towers on the corners of the main temple, and beside one or two of them, there's a bell you could ring. Walking around, there's also a back garden, kind of, just a grass patch with trees and a mound under which the emperor Huang Taiji rests. It's situated deep within a protected forest area, and is a literal representation of how the emperor of one of the most powerful emerging military empires in the East Asia returns to nature. There's also a lot of artistic decorations on the walls and everything. It must have cost a lot of not only money but manpower from the most creative brains during times of conflict and war to complete this magnificent build. After walking around, it was actually almost closing time for the mausoleum, so I exited and took a stroll at the peaceful public park outside. In the middle stood a huge statue of Huang Taiji and a brief description of him on the back. After that, we went to the Xita food street, known for its Korean barbecue and produce. So while back in Dandong, a lot of Korean influence came from North Korea because of the physical proximity of the city to North Korea. Here in Shenyang's Xita Street, the Korean influence comes from South Korea as it's more modern and is a bigger city. Shenyang is twinned with 4 cities in South Korea, and South Korean visitors call Shenyang Korea City or Northern Little Seoul. Even the barbecue place we went to is named after Itaewon in Seoul. Yep, we had Korean barbecue for dinner. Then after dinner, we drove to the Lao Bei Shi, a night market where a lot of life takes place after sunset. They have a lot of supper stalls and also some cultural showcases featuring oracle bone scripts of Chinese characters, and also a traditional storytelling. I got curious and watched the show, but I didn't take any picture or video of it because the show was presented in a box where the presenter had to control 2D drum figures inside, and I had to look through goggles. It wasn't easy to film it, and I wasn't allowed to anyways, since it's actually a piece of intangible heritage. If you want to see it for yourself, I guess come to Shenyang to take a look. There's also a drone show featuring a flying phoenix. Well, we came here to walk around and digest our dinner, not to get more food or supper. So that's exactly what we did. Walk around and take photos and take in the atmosphere. Yeah, really a lot of life going on and looks super festive and vibrant every day, every night. Soon we were done walking through the market and went to check into our hotel and rest for the night, as the next day will be a long day and a hot day ahead. The next morning, we woke up and headed to the Shenyang Imperial Palace. We walked there after having a simple breakfast, and as we neared the place, we passed by this gate with Manchu text written in gold on a blue background. This is the Huaiyuan Gate that leads to Shenyang Road, the road that goes right outside the entrance to the Imperial Palace. This used to be the residence for the first 3 emperors, the later Qin and Qing dynasties collectively, Nor Hachi, Huang Taiji, and also the Shunzhi Emperor, under whom the Qing conquered Beijing and replaced the Ming dynasty as the new China after they moved the capital to Beijing and occupied the Forbidden Palace there to use as the emperor's new residence. The Shenyang Imperial Palace would fall in status to a regional palace, but subsequent emperors would still visit the Shenyang Palace for a few days every year. Under the Qianlong Emperor, the great-grandson of the Shunzhi Emperor, the Shenyang Palace will be expanded to the size that it has remained till today. The areas around the Shenyang Imperial Palace had become residential areas, shops, and restaurants, but this palace still stands in the center of the city more than a century after the fall of imperial rule in China. It was redeveloped as a history museum complex after the founding of the People's Republic of China and retains many important elements of history of pre-modern China. It has many palaces, rooms, temples, gardens, and passageways that we walk through. Inside, some of the rooms had been redeveloped as modern restaurants. There's also one shop that sells popsicles in the theme of the Imperial Palace, which is a great way to cool off on this hot summer day with so many people around radiating twice as much heat as the sun alone. The Shenyang Forbidden Palace, a very big square to the east of the main palace. And this, the Zhang. I don't know how to translate the last word, 大正殿. Combines the elements of 4 ethnicities: Han, Mongol, Manchu, and Tibetan. Very iconic Shenyang building. In the eastern quarter, there's a mirror that reflects an image of this palace as clear as water, and we took a couple pictures of that. It was already nearing noon and the sun was shining on top of our heads, the hottest time of the day. So we soon exited the Imperial Palace and walked to our next destination. We bought another popsicle because really, the day was too hot and we needed something to cool ourselves off. On the way, we passed by a show rehearsal. I don't know which festival it was for, or was it a community performance, but it looked kinda amazing. We then walked to the Marshal's residence, 大帅府, alternatively called Marshal Zhang's residence, 张氏帅府, or Zhang Xueliang's former residence, 张学良旧居. Obviously, from the name of the place, we know that a person called Zhang Xueliang used to live in this place. Zhang Xueliang was nicknamed the Young Marshal as he was the military warlord of the Fengtian clique that ruled over northeast China, beginning from his father Zhang Zuolin's rule beginning from 1916, the year that the president of the Republic of China, Yuan Shikai, declared himself the Hongxian Emperor and restored the Chinese monarchy briefly. And many Chinese provincial governors decided to oppose this by declaring non-allegiance and resisting. That began the warlord era in which many semi-independent regional cliques began fighting for dominance in China. In northeast China, the Fengtian clique, which ruled from Shenyang, managed to consolidate control over most of the northeastern provinces and sometimes briefly fought with or collaborated with other warlords. After the assassination of the old Marshal Zhang Zuolin, his son Zhang Xueliang took over and negotiated with Kuomintang's National Revolutionary Army to agree with Jiang Jieshi's request for reunification of northeast China with Kuomintang-controlled areas of China in turn for a military position. Zhang Xueliang accepted to cooperate, and according to later historians, this was seen as Zhang Xueliang willing to contribute to the efforts of reunifying a fragmented China. When Japan invaded northeast China, Jiang Jieshi adopted a no-resistance policy and ordered Zhang Xueliang to retreat south and abandon the northeastern provinces. Zhang initially accepted, but a few years later could no longer stand his policy and was disgruntled how Jiang got his priorities wrong by allowing Japan to continuously invade China while dealing with communists. Zhang Xueliang subsequently kidnapped Jiang Jieshi and forced him to form a second united Chinese front against Japanese invaders in 1937. And although this got himself into some trouble of being convicted of arresting the president, kidnapping the president, and disobeying orders, and being sentenced to house arrest for decades until 1988, when the Kuomintang had long lost the mainland and retreated to Taiwan, where he regained freedom and emigrated to the US, where he lived his final years and died. The Communist Party of China saw Zhang Xueliang's act of kidnapping Jiang Jieshi as a heroic and huge contribution to China's war efforts against the Japanese invasion, and invited him to revisit the mainland multiple times, even though he rejected, citing his political allegiance to the nationalists. Still, the communist government decided to honor Zhang Xueliang and protect his old residence by designating it a museum. This residence is now seen as a significant piece of history belonging to early modern China. It shows where the occupants used to live, sleep, work, and meet with other political leaders. Really, this looks exactly like drama shows set in the Republic of China period that my grandparents watched, just in real life. It's pretty nice that there's also a little backyard garden, really peaceful to walk in after a long day of working and worrying about politics of the entire region and the whole country. After that, we walked to the Xiaonan Catholic Church nearby. It's also alternatively called the Cathedral of the Sacred Heart of Jesus in Shenyang. 沈阳耶稣圣心主教座堂 Holy shit, that's a full name, it's so long. As it wasn't Sunday, the inside of the church was not open and there were no prayer sessions going on. We just took pictures of the outside, which was apparently inspired by Gothic architecture and reminiscent of cathedrals from France, Germany, Italy, and some parts of England. After visiting the church, we went to the September 18th Museum. It was named after this day in 1931 when Japan staged the Mukden incident and used this as an excuse to invade and take over northeast China, establishing a puppet regime of Manchukuo and terrorizing the local population for 14 years. During Japan's 14-year-long occupation of China, and even decades before that, when Japan fought China and occupied pockets of land here and there, tens of millions of Chinese civilians were subject to indiscriminate mass killings and torture. In this museum, the people who wrote the description did a very good job of trying their best not to blame ordinary Japanese people or the Japanese nation for the crimes of Imperial Japan against China during the 14 years of invasion, but only on those politicians and military heads running Japan. It's constantly mentioned in the museum that China and Japan had coexisted mostly peacefully throughout almost 2,000 years of being neighbors, and it was only after the Meiji Restoration that Japan began to militarize aggressively and plan on invading neighboring countries for resources to supply their own selfish, bottomless bellies. Beginning from Shenyang, the Japanese terror against Chinese civilians spread in all directions, and the territory of northeast China fell within only 4 months, also partially due to the no-resistance policy from Jiang Jieshi. That cost millions of Chinese lives as Jiang Jieshi literally abandoned northeast China. Northeast China suffered 6 more years of occupation and oppression than the rest of the country, and this museum here documents every detail from how many Chinese lives perished under the occupation, how much China contributed to the world's struggle against fascist countries in World War II, many pictures of the people's sufferings, and even 3D reconstructions of what the living conditions were like. At the same time, this museum was doing a very good job at not blaming Japanese people or the Japanese nation for the crimes committed by the Japanese imperialist invaders. It showed how China treated surrendered Japanese soldiers with humanity as a stark contrast to how Japanese invaders treated Chinese civilians simply living their life. The later exhibits of this museum show a more positive ending compared to the 14 years of suffering. After China's liberation and trial of Japanese war criminals, they repatriated Japanese civilians and workers who didn't commit any war crimes peacefully that were settled into China during the occupation, and the captured soldiers who showed good behavior were given back their freedom after they served their time. In the upcoming decades, Japanese politicians and organizations have also visited the September 18 Museum and learned about this dark period in history. One central message is always echoed throughout. Chinese people and Japanese people are all just people, and those to blame for whatever suffering and injustice should not be the commoners, and collective punishment and collateral damage shouldn't be the way, as it doesn't benefit anyone. Only through knowing history and remembering it, then we can move on to a future for peace. After that, we took a more light-hearted trip to the Shenyang Museum, located opposite the Liaoning Grand Theater. Time was running out, so we only went to the museum, which was very beautifully decorated and had many galleries located throughout. It takes us through the prehistory of northeast China, including asteroids that landed here and fossils of animals, such as this dinosaur named after Nurhachi, the Nurhachius ignatiobritoi. It's so interesting how some proto-birds are named after locations around Shenyang, or even historical figures like Confucius, the Longipteryx chaoyanggensis, and Confuciusornis sanctus. There's also some archaeological showcase, as well as introductions and descriptions of who lived in and ruled over Shenyang throughout different periods in written history. The most notable rulers before the Yuan were the Khitans, who established the Liao dynasty as their territories were established literally on the banks of the Liao River. They expanded throughout the northeastern, northern, and northwestern China, as well as Mongolia, some areas in modern-day Far Eastern Russia, and even to the northern parts of the Korean Peninsula. Fun fact, the Liao dynasty actually built the shortest Great Wall in China, the Zhendongguan Great Wall, located in Dalian, my birth city, further south on the Liaodong Peninsula. Back to the museum, it also showcases the Khitan language used by Khitan natives of the Liao Empire and looks eerily similar to Chinese, as it was quite literally derived of Chinese. However, both the spoken language and written script became extinct after the fall of Liao, as most Khitan people got assimilated into neighboring peoples after Yuan conquest of northern China. And not many Khitans were literate to begin with. The Khitan script was meant for the elite and ruling class. However, fun fact, the name Khitan carried over into other languages and how they refer to China. For example, Cathay by Marco Polo, or Khitoy in the old Chagatai literary language, Khitoy in Uzbek, Khitai in Kazakh and Kyrgyz, Khitai in Russian, Ukrainian and Bulgarian, Khitai in Turkmen, and so on. Back to the museum, it finally reaches the Qing chapter in history, showing Nora Hachi, the father of Huang Taiji, whose tomb I visited in the earlier part of the episode, as well as reconstructions of what cities and towns looked like during Qing rule. Nora Hachi was buried in the Fuling Mausoleum, also called Dongling or Eastern Mausoleum because it's situated in the eastern part of Shenyang, but we didn't get to visit. Lastly, the gallery ends with the liberation of Shenyang by the Communist Party's People's Liberation Army during the Chinese Civil War, marking the last major city to be captured from the hands of Kuomintang in northeast China and the complete liberation of the northeastern provinces. There were other galleries in the museum as well, but we didn't have time to visit because we had another place to go to after this. It was almost the evening, and because we had barely anything for lunch, we were starving, so we decided to take the metro to our next stop. I got myself a physical Metro card because for some reason I couldn't activate my Alipay for Shenyang public transport. It was a bit weird, but not a very huge inconvenience. I mean, the Metro card has a nice design featuring this building we saw in the Shenyang Imperial Palace. And about the metro station itself, it was pretty nice, pretty spacious and clean, typical for a Chinese metro station that's not one of the old lines built in Beijing. We arrived at the Zhongjie station, which led up to the most iconic pedestrian street in Shenyang. Zhongjie, yeah, literally meaning middle street. We walked around for a bit and it was no longer hot as it was already in the evening and the sun was almost setting. We bought a chicken and looked around for a place to sit down and eat. That was just one problem to be solved, as the other problem was finding a WC to wash our hands after getting them all oily. There's this saying that circulates on the internet that goes, no chicken can ever walk out of Shenyang alive, which is true because they walked into our stomachs. We also got some extra to bring back to Dalian since we were already going to leave Shenyang that night. After savoring some chicken, we entered this dessert shop, Zhongjie 1946 Ice Desserts, Zhongjie Bingdian, which was famous for its ice cream and other desserts, especially this super delicious mix of milk and ice cream called semi-liquid milk ice cream. It's a very creative name that doesn't really have a fixed English translation and can't be searched on Google. But now you've come across this hidden gem, you can't forget this. Then on the wall, they've also pasted pictures of Obama and Putin enjoying ice cream, probably Photoshop or somehow generated. Those are definitely not real, but they give good laughs. After having another popsicle, this time a solid one, we started walking around and just exploring and taking in the atmosphere, walking by many shops and stalls selling food and other items. We also happened to pass by this Crosstalk show on this stage. Very interesting.
展现一下我的文化底蕴。哎呀妈呀，你文化高呗，还会四字成语呢？会呀。那我考你呗。你要考我一下子啊？你怎么考一下？我听一下子。那咱就得朋友们掌声，今天挺激烈的。然后我就用那个今天也祝好朋友们发大财，然后用那个财字你说一下行不行？就是恭喜发财那个财呗。对，恭喜发财。拉起来。
and also this poison bait station for rats, and a sideboard encouraging singles to unsingle themselves, play games, go on dates, drink some alcohol, listen to music, eat some barbecue, and just stare into blank space. By now, night had fallen and we had to finish our journey in Shenyang soon. This city has a lot of places that we didn't get to see yet, a lot of hidden gems and all. It's a historic city with many places of interest and rich in culture, with lots of food places that I can never finish exploring in my entire life. But we only had so little time left because we were going back home. We had to catch a train from Shenyang to Dalian, so we got back on the metro, took the train back to our hotel where our bags were stored, and quickly took the metro again to head to Shenyang railway station. The station square from the outside looked grand and I loved the architecture. Really quite sad how we didn't have more time to explore around the area, but it's alright, because all these places in Shenyang will still be there to stay, to wait for me and other visitors to come back anytime in future. Here, the bullet train we were taking pulled into the platforms. Our journey in Shenyang had come to an end, and our vacation was about to end soon. We were now heading back to Dalian, where we'd rest for a few days and go a few more places before finally calling our vacation a close. Thanks for watching this video. Remember to like, subscribe, share this video, and leave some comments. Have you been to Shenyang or Dalian before? What are some interesting places that you've been to or you recommend that I missed and should go see the next time? Catch me again in the next episode, the finale to my 2024 summer vlog. Please stay tuned.